Hi YouTube, it's Kathy and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for September 28th through October 4th. This week I read 4 books, I watched 3 shows, and I listened to 2 audiobooks. And yes, I'm doing this with coffee and a strip waffle because I like life. It turns out when you take a bite of strip waffle, you really do need a sip of coffee to get the strip waffle out of your teeth before you film. First this week I finished Gardening Can Be Murder. This book is about different mystery books set in and around gardens or having something to do with gardens and kind of drawing on the reasons why some people might have been obsessed with writing their detectives in gardens at certain periods in time. But outside of that, it's also just a giant recommendation list for mysteries set in and around gardens, to the point where when I was reading this, I was keeping track of all of the books that were mentioned, and yeah, I made a list, so if you want that list, I'll link it down below. I had a good time, and this didn't immediately put all of these books right at the top of my TBR, but you know, now they're floating around in the background being like, hey, remember us? You know, because that's how all TBR books talk. Remember us? Next, I finished Tender is the Flesh. This is a book set in Argentina, and the main premise in this book is this society has declared that meat from animals actually hurts people. It's become toxic to people. So instead of, you know, not eating meat anymore, they eat special meat, which is exactly what you expect it to be. In the before times, our main character worked at a slaughterhouse. It was a family operation, and now he's continuing to work in a meat processing plant because we can't call it a slaughterhouse anymore because his father is elderly, needs a lot of care, and he needs money to pay for that care. So we see in great detail the whole process of bringing in the head, which is what they call individual units of cattle, the inspections they have to go through, the records they have to have, and the process of actually processing them so they can end up on somebody's plate. This has a lot to do with governments who lie to you and capitalism and in the ways in which people will flaunt their wealth. And I definitely made some very weird faces while reading this in public. I'm also kind of happy to say that yes, I am one of those veganoids, because that's definitely an insult that was thrown in this book when somebody was like, nah, I'd rather not eat meat today. Next on this list I have something I picked up specifically because it's on one of the quest lists on Pagebound, and that's the life-changing manga of Tidying Up. For a woman who's like, hey, you should only ever have like 20 to 30 books tops in your house because unread books, that's just toxic, you should throw those out, this woman sure writes the same book over and over and over again in different styles. But you know, I want to read the books that get me badges, so here we are. You're not gonna fit on the edge of my cup anymore, are you? Damn it. So if you've never heard of the Marie Kondo method before, it's basically take all of the things in one category in your house, put them in one place, touch them each individually, and if they spark joy, keep them. You're meant to start with things that are like more impersonal, so like your clothing or your books. Which again, there was a panel in this book where it literally said something to the effect of, does it spark joy for you to be in a room full of books you haven't read? And I was like, actually, yes. Look, some of the stuff in here is practical and some of it's kind of silly, but just out of curiosity, I did spend some time while watching YouTube videos just folding all of my t-shirts the way she teaches you to in the manga, and you know what? It is pretty satisfying to look at your drawer and be like, yep, those are all folded kind of nicely. I was using the folding and rolling method, which works really, really well and uses up about the same amount of space, but now I can see most of my t-shirts at the same time. Because let's be honest, I have a lot of t-shirts and they go in more than one drawer. And just when you think you've folded all of your t-shirts, you remember that some are in the laundry. Her ridiculous views on books aside, this is kind of fun because you are watching somebody actually go through this process, so it's a little bit more fun than reading the original, which I did read back in the day, just because everybody seemed to be reading it. And in this, you're seeing this girl actually go through all of these steps and how that's affecting her life, which is kind of cool, I guess. The 4th book I read with my eyeballs, I read mostly all of yesterday. I sped through this one. It's called Bloom by Delilah S. Dawson. I have read work by this author before, but I think it was only the stuff that she's co-written with somebody else, and they were more of a comedic tone, so I was interested to see what she was going to do with something I assumed was going to be much, much darker. This book is about a woman named Ro, and she lives in this town that she hasn't lived in for a very long time because she broke up with her boyfriend, she doesn't get along with her mother, and she decided to move to this completely different location so she could be an assistant professor there. As we meet her, she's at this farmer's market, she's just kind of wandering around, living her best life, when she meets this woman and she's immediately drawn into her. Up until this point, she thought she was straight, and now she's starting to question that. And she finds herself going back Saturday after Saturday after Saturday to spend a little bit more time with this woman named Ash. She buys her cupcakes, which are absolutely delicious. She ends up buying a plant because she's like, look, you need to take this and then neglect it it and it will thrive. And she's like, well, I'm good at killing plants, so I'm pretty sure this one's gonna die, but okay. And eventually they end up spending some time outside of this situation, and our character gets to find out whether or not she's also interested in women and whether or not there's anybody else in her life. However, as we're going through it, there's these tiny little red flags sprinkled throughout, and I'm going to suggest that you read this for yourself and see if you can see those flying in the breeze in the background. And there was one thing in particular where I was like, this is going to be revealed later. And I was right about it, and I didn't like that I was right about it. Roe is also a lover of words, so there's a wide vocabulary used in this book. And something about it made reading it so smooth and easy, and I just wanted to know what was going to happen. As for the shows I watched all of the 3rd and 4th series of Prime Suspect. This is a show I believe I started last week, starring Helen Mirren. It takes place in the 90s, and she heads various teams in various police departments around London trying to solve crimes. Because of the format of the show for the first 3 seasons, because each season was only 2 episodes long, and both of those episodes together created one arc, and each of those episodes is like an hour 40-minute runtime. The first series had this flavor of feminism, the second series had this flavor of race and racism, and the third series had this flavor to do with sexual minorities, homophobia, and transphobia. Because one of the key characters in this case was a trans woman who was actually played by Peter Capaldi. In the 4th series, we actually get 3 episodes, and each of them is their own story. I am continuing to enjoy this. I'm really enjoying watching all of these crime programs, specifically on BritBox, to the point where I made 2 different lists to do with people that have badges and the books they came from. On the one side, we have BritBox badge broads, and on the other side, we have BritBox badge bros. So just depending on if the protagonist was a man or a woman. Still waiting for a non-binary detective. I'm sure that will come someday, although I am learning with my most recent read that the UK used to be at the top when it came to queer rights in the European Union, and now it's dropped down to number 17, so maybe not anytime soon. As for the other shows I watched, I stayed current on the 20th season of Taskmaster. This was the 3rd episode of the 10-episode series. There's never very much for me to say when it comes to one specific episode of Taskmaster. We all know I really like this format. I really like watching it with my boyfriend, who's currently in Europe. Which means the other thing we watched together this week was the episode of Jet Lag the Game All-Stars that went up this week on YouTube, even though I could be watching it on Nebula a week ahead, but I'm not because he can't, because he's over there. This one is a game of tag across Europe. They're playing in 3 different teams of 2. The All-Stars component is 3 of these people are not usually on the show, but have been on the show randomly throughout the seasons. And for the first time in 15 seasons, as Sam made sure to point out, they passed the Bechdel test. Although if you want to be very technical, no they didn't, because those people needed to have a conversation of at least a minute that had nothing to do with men, not just have 2 women in the same frame, but you tried. I thought it was funny to point out, honestly. As for the books I listened to this week, the first one is Mystery in the Title, which is the 2nd in the Miranda Abbott series. This book takes place in a very small town called Happy Rock, and our main character is Miranda Abbott, who is an actress and used to be the lead actress of a TV show 15 years ago. On that show, which is called Pastor Fran Investigates, she played Pastor Fran, and she was going to place to place to place and solving all of these different crimes along the way. Now Miranda Abbott feels like she has previously solved so many crimes. She has so much experience doing that, even though most of those crimes, bar one, were, you know, fiction. So when something happens on the set of a movie that is going to be filming in Happy Rock, she feels like she can help solve the case. I really like this series for the insider knowledge it has when it comes to theater departments and movies, because I know at least one of the brothers who wrote this has a background in that. For all I know, Will does as well, but I've never met Will, whereas I've met Ian before, and I've actually helped out on one thing he was directing, and I was in something else he was directing. So from there I know he's probably met lots of people like this main character, who is very much a diva. She'll walk into a room and be like, yes, it is I, and people will be like, I don't know who that lady is. And for the most part, she means well, but she's also kind of insufferable. But she doesn't know she's doing it is the biggest thing about it. And all of her knowledge actually comes in handy sometimes. It's a fun series, would recommend. The other audiobook I listened to this week is Don't Let the Forest In. I didn't know anything going into this one beside it looks a little bit creepy and spooky. I knew there was probably a queer element to it. And both of those things are definitely accurate. Our main character is a twin. He and his twin sister go to this private school in America, even though they're from Australia, because his dad came into a bunch of money when they were in their early teens and has the ability to put them in a nice school while he's traveling for business. They're coming back to their senior year, and we know that something happened the year previous, but we don't really know what it was. Additionally, we know that he kind of wrote this short story about giving his heart away to this other guy, aka their mutual best friend, but he hasn't really talked to Thomas over the summer because Thomas's phone was actually broken and his parents won't buy him a new one. On the very first day of school, Thomas is brought into the principal's office and told that his parents are missing and there's a huge mess in the family house and there's a lot of blood, and they're wondering if he knows anything to do with this. This book that is full of sorrow and mental health issues and pining and yearning. If you have any particular triggers when it comes to eating or the lack thereof, be sure to be very mindful going into this one, because our main character does eventually just stop eating. I absolutely tore right through this one. The writing was absolutely gorgeous, and I cannot wait to read their newest book that is coming out this month. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment but want to make sure that I know you're here, just leave me an emoji or smiley face if you happen to be on your keyboard. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I set up a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. The link for that, as always, is down below. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!